to college, like many people who go to college, I was desperate to find an identity. And like many people who go to college, I found it in politics. And this were heady times. This was the year before and after Bush got reelected. There was a lot of politics to be involved in. If there was a whale to be saved, I was saving it. If there was a rally to be at, I was crying at it. I was so headlong into liberalism. I joined a radical feminist organization. I went vegan. And I even became the president of the Tribune, which was the alt-weekly, bi-weekly, at the state college that I was at. And I was really into this. And we were a well-respected publication. We had been around for maybe 20, 30 years, and we were desperately committed to things like social commentary and LGBT rights and feminism and Death Cab for Cutie record reviews. We were into this, right? And this was everything I was. This was everything I entitled myself to be. And then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came a gorgeous, glossy, conservative bi-weekly called The Commander. And I had no idea where it came from, but then I found out it was funded by a conservative think tank in Washington, D.C., publicly funded at the Tribune, and it was run by Dave McMillan III, a blazer-wearing, cigar-smoking, my dad pays for college-ing conservative. And he very swiftly became my nemesis. He was the bane of my existence. This is, two parts, right? A, I didn't like what he was saying. This is the kind of person who published in his paper that, like, global warming is not the result of human activities, but rather, like, well-documented society, like, shifts in the atmosphere, like, that kind of stuff. They had, like, a Sam Alito, like, ooh, day. And they also are really bad journalists. They would do things like publish emails and AIM conversations and phone conversations without the participants' knowledge. And that, to me, was abhorrible. This paper was vile, and the person who ran it, Dave McMillan III, needed to go down. And I was the liberal to do it. So, I devised a plan. I am going to seduce David McMillan III. My intellect, I'm going to use my wiles, I'm going to use everything in my arsenal. I'm thinking like Elizabeth Taylor, right, in Cleopatra, or like Katharine Hepburn in anything she's ever done. I'm thinking like femme fatale, but for the masses, And so I decided, so this is the plan, right? I'm gonna ask him out on dates, we're gonna date, he's gonna fall desperately in love with me, he's gonna understand the liberal worldview for the first time, he's never had it before, he's gonna see that he is in the wrong and I am in the right, and he's just gonna be so ensconced with this idea and this rational thinking that he is just going to abandon his worldview, and the commander will fold, and that shoddy journalism will just fade into the specter of Marxism or whatever I wanted it to fade into at the time. So, I'm in. Foolproof plan, right? So, we're at a rally against something, or like spitting fires and eating lentils, and Dave has parked his vintage Italian roadster on the sidewalk and is leaning against it, like looking down his Ray-Bans. And like they're there protesting the protesters, we're there protesting them, everybody's protesting everyone else, and I walk up in a blazer 2 sizes too small, and I say, "What are you doing after the rally?" And he says, "We're going to a martini bar." And I say, "Great." He says, "Do you like to come along?" And I say, "Oh, yes." So we go to the martini bar, and we're drinking dirty martinis, which are gross. But I'm doing it, right? I'm doing it. I'm in this. This is my plan. And I walk up and I said, "Let's get out of here." And he says, "Do you want to come back to my place?" I say, "Yes." And he said, "All right, guys, let's go." And like his entire conservative posse comes with us. So that's like me and Dave and like 17 minions. And we're in his apartment, he puts on like some sort of like angry German classical music and like brings out a bottle of Rioja that his father brought back from Madrid after their summer there. And we all sit around and he just talks bullshit for like 2 hours. And then he gets up and he goes, "I'm going to bed." And I say, "Oh." And he looks at me and he says, "Good night." And he turns around and goes into his bedroom and shuts the door. And I'm just like there with the minions. Like, you want to talk burn? Like, okay, all right. So I look at his best friend, I was like, "Your friend is an asshole." And he's like, "Why?" And I was like, "What do you think I've been doing here for 2 hours?" And I like gather my stuff and like stomp out into the night, alone, in a blazer 2 sizes too small, just reeking of rejection. So, to add insult to injury, the next day I get a note delivered by the best friend, and it says, "To the president of the Tribune, from the editor-in-chief and founder, in parentheses, David Camilla III. And inside it says, hey, thanks for hanging out, yada, 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 maybe I'll see you around sometime. And I'm just like, livid, right? I realize, and look at it, my name isn't anywhere on it. He knows what I do, I'm the president. He has no idea who I was. He does not even know my name. Years I spent on this being angry. And it's kind of funny, because now he's like sort of a famous gross muckraker. But when preparing for this story, I got the note out again. And I actually read it this time. Because the first time I'm just blinded by something, like an organizational vendetta that became a personal challenge, right? And when I actually read the note, it said, hey, thanks for coming over last night. It's nice to know that there's an exception for the women that don't just like jerks and jocks. Had I known that you wanted to stay over, I would have said yes. I had my heart broken last semester. It's kind of weird for me. Good luck in India when you're abroad, and maybe I'll see you around sometime, Dave. And I look back, and I was just blinded by my pride, right? That I had focused everything, all of my attention on what he did, and I had absolutely no idea